Our predator investigations in an undercover house, but tonight we go coast to coast on an undercover road trip. Good evening and welcome to Dateline. I'm Chris Hansen. It's all about this little gadget worth its weight in gold. Everyone, it seems, has their eye on an iPod. And all across the country, iPod thefts are a growing problem. What can be done to stop these eyejackers? Tonight, we catch some red-handed. Here's a message from Dana.
My iPod was given to me as a Christmas gift, and it was stolen right out of my college dorm room.
Another from Joe.
Back in January, my apartment was broken into. The only things they stole were my iPod and my digital camera.
And this from Jessica.
And after school, I looked through my purse to see if I could listen to my iPod, and it wasn't there.
Frustrated iPod owners.
Didn't actually take anything else out of the car, just the iPod.
Angry their music was taken from them by people like this. You're watching on hidden camera as an iPod is being lifted from this car. This iPod is going to disappear along with the person taking it. But tonight, we're going on the hunt to see if it's possible using some of the same high-tech capabilities that make the iPod the phenomenon it is to track down people who take iPods that don't belong to them. So you don't see anything wrong with what you did?
It's a cool world, so everyone does it to everybody.
The iPod. It's everywhere. Originally billed as 1,000 songs in your pocket, it can now hold up to 20,000 songs, 100 hours of video, 25,000 photos, and with a staggering 110 million sold, the device has become an international icon and an indispensable part of life.
I take it with me everywhere now.
I can't live without it now.
But as you've heard, if you've got to have it, so do thieves. In Los Angeles, robberies of iPods and other gadgets shot up 34% last year. In San Francisco, iPod robberies nearly doubled. The crime wave has led to schools across the country banning iPods. Even Apple admits the problem is serious, sometimes leading to injuries of iPod owners. And in this case, in New York City, even tragedy.
A teenager murdered over an iPod. 2 suspects in custody.
So common are they, the thefts have led to a new term, eyejacking.
I've had hundreds of investigations that have involved iPods at one point in time.
Richard Kenny is a New York City Police Department burglary detective.
This is a problem all over the United States.
Have you talked to other detectives in other cities?
It's basically the same all over. People are stealing iPods, and detectives have additional work on their desks.
We met the detective when a Dateline senior producer's son had his iPod stolen. And we wondered, since the iPod is such a high-tech marvel, capable of communicating with a central database each time it's plugged into a computer, if an iPod went missing, maybe there was some way to find it. Alan Ferry wondered the same thing when he lost his girlfriend's iPod.
And what did you say to your girlfriend?
I didn't say anything. I didn't tell her. I was like, I'll find the damn thing.
But how? Would there actually be a way to track down stolen or missing iPods? If you own an iPod, you already know when you first buy it, you plug it into your computer and register it with Apple. Apple files the iPod's serial number and requests personal information like your name and address. Then, each time you want to download or purchase a song online from iTunes, your computer communicates with a central database at Apple. If you buy a song, Apple requests credit card information. And it's because of all that identifying information that some consumers are convinced iPods can be tracked if they're lost or stolen. Since Apple is in the best position to track iPods, we called the company to see if it would work with us on a story that set out to answer whether a stolen iPod could be traced. Apple declined. That left us with one option. We'd have to try to track down some missing iPods ourselves, track them down using the same kind of information Apple might have at its disposal. We had one overburdened detective in our corner. Do you think thieves take things because they know there's a lower risk of being caught?
Absolutely. I think that anyone who knows that they will not be caught is more likely to commit that crime.
And if we could show it's possible to track down iPods, it might give at least some thieves second thoughts about taking them. This iPod is being taken. It's going to disappear on the streets of Santa Monica. Can we find her and the iPod? We're about to find out. We swing into action with a surprise weapon, Dateline's secret disc.
We're hoping to pinpoint the location of a stolen iPod.
When To Catch an Hijacker continues. You're watching an iPod being taken. In an instant, it's gone. And New York City Police Detective Richard Kenny admits if it's happened to you, as things stand now, you're pretty much out of luck.
What are the realistic chances that you can recover somebody's stolen iPod?
Out of all the investigations I've done, I've only been involved in one case.
One case.
Where we recovered 2 iPods.
But Detective Kenny thinks he'd be more successful if he could use some of the iPod's own high-tech capabilities to track them down. Obviously, most iPods that are stolen aren't new in the box. They're like this one. Police like Detective Kenny imagine a crime-fighting scenario like this. If this iPod was reported stolen, the real owner could supply his name, address, and the serial number of the device to authorities or to Apple. Then if a thief tried connecting the stolen iPod, a central database could detect its serial number or other personal data embedded in that machine to immediately flag it as stolen. And if the thief supplied personal information when he tried buying songs from the iTunes database or by answering other questions online, he could be located and arrested. But since we aren't Apple and don't have our own iPod database, how could we possibly test the theory? We'd have to have a plan. First, we went shopping. We bought dozens of iPods that we'd use as bait to be stolen or deliberately lost. We hired a software company, Blackfin Tech, to help us.
We're hoping to collect information that will enable us to pinpoint the location of a stolen iPod.
Jefferson Jewell runs Blackfin. His solution? To simply demonstrate whether an iPod has the capability of being tracked, we'd create our own database, just like Apple has. We try to get basic information from whoever plugged it in this case, from people the iPods didn't belong to. How would we get the information? Instead of putting used iPods out as bait, we'd use new ones, brand new in the box. To a thief, they'd be exactly like the real thing. Except for this. With a new iPod, the first thing you normally do is download Apple iTunes software, which allows you to buy and download music as well as provide basic information about the user to Apple. To get our bait iPods to work, whoever takes them will have to install a disc. What they won't know is that when they click I agree on a licensing agreement that appears on screen, they'll be consenting to provide some of the same kind of information they provide Apple to Dateline.
The information ranges from everything from first name, last name, to mobile phone number, home address, what your MySpace handle is, all sorts of things.
Now it was time to see if our plan would work.
He pops open the case at the
First, how do thieves usually steal iPods? We'd seen store surveillance video of thieves in Minnesota. Even seen an airline pilot who authorities said was caught on tape stealing a passenger's iPod in a Florida security line. And NYPD Detective Richard Kenny says while some iPods are stolen in burglaries,
generally speaking, the most common is just people leaving them lying around and someone lifting it off a table.
So that's how we decided to get our iPods taken, by just leaving them someplace unattended. First stop, Berkeley, California, where police told us there'd been a rash of iPod thefts and robberies near Berkeley High School.
All right, let's give this a shot.
Our Dateline producer places the brand new iPod, still in the box, on the dashboard of our convertible. Incredibly, within seconds, a group of students comes along, and our iPod is gone. We put out another iPod. To their credit, dozens of students walk past without taking it, but then watch these two. They walk past our car, see the iPod, and soon after, one turns around to grab it from the dash. As they walk away, they look pleased with themselves and their new stolen iPod. But how happy will they be if we can find them? Next stop, Fisherman's Wharf across San Francisco Bay. We left iPods and shopping bags on benches and walked away as if the owner had momentarily left them behind, or as if the bag had been forgotten. What would you think if you found something like this in a crowded tourist area? Would you think the iPod didn't belong to anyone? Watch this young man. With our producer just a few feet away, he sits down, bides his time, and minutes later, Watch his hand as he grabs the iPod before he stands up and walks away. Does he think he's found an iPod, or does he know he's doing something wrong? But teenagers wouldn't be the only ones taking our iPods. This woman notices our bag, soon sits down next to it, and after a few seconds, takes the iPod and places it in her shopping bag before hurrying away. So far, 4 iPods missing in action in the Bay Area. Before we try to track them down, we plant more. Next, we travel to several malls in northern New Jersey, where we watch as this young woman takes our iPod left atop a car and a shopping bag.
They took it.
And skips happily away. Remember, Detective Kenny said most iPods are taken when they're inadvertently left somewhere. So we go inside the mall and leave our iPods on benches as if we're a shopper who simply walked away. Will anyone turn the iPods into lost and found, or will they take our iPods home? First, we watch as this young man grabs a black canvas bag we put down bearing an iPod. In case you're wondering if he understands the moral issues and what he's doing, he does return the tote bag to Lost and Found, but incredibly takes the iPod that was inside.
No iPod.
Again and again, people walk away with our iPods. This woman doesn't even hesitate. She grabs a shopping bag with our iPod inside, turns around, and is gone. Our unattended iPods seem to be like magnets. How would you feel if you went to a food court in a mall, got up to buy a snack, and left your new iPod at your seat, and this happened? Check out this couple as they take the iPod from our table. It's enough to make you lose your appetite. We even see young children like this boy who takes our bag and then hands it to his mother. We should point out that not everyone in every city we went to took the iPods left by Dateline. Time and again, people sat down next to the iPods and did nothing. Others, like this mall employee, were curious enough to look in the bag, but when they realized the value of the iPod inside, waved down security. They did the right thing, but many others did not. We move on to Las Vegas, where more iPods are taken. Again, we hit the food court in a mall and leave the iPod on a table as if a shopper had simply put it down, then walked away briefly to grab lunch. Minutes later, this young man appears, finds our iPod, and after a brief discussion with a friend, disappears with the iPod, even though security guards are standing no more than a few feet away. Then, in the same mall, we leave an iPod on a bench. Watch this man find the iPod, discard the shopping bag it came in, and nonchalantly walk away with his female companion. Would we ever see this iPod again? We'd soon find out, but there would be more iPods to disappear. We visit the historic Fremont district of Las Vegas. Watch this woman. She looks at the bag, walks around it for several minutes, apparently checking to see if anyone is watching, and then she makes her move, grabs the bag, and disappears into the crowd. And this man who did the same. He moves in as all the tourists let down their guard, watching a loud light show overhead, takes the unattended bag with our iPod inside, and casually saunters away. Finally, our last stop, Santa Monica, California. We leave shopping bags with iPods inside on benches at the 3rd Street Promenade. It wasn't long before they're all gone, taken, by this man out for a walk with his dog, this maintenance man, and finally, this woman, who wastes no time picking up the bag. Watching so many people walk away with iPods that didn't belong to them didn't seem to surprise NYPD Detective Richard Kenny.
What do you suppose it is about iPods that has made them such a target for thieves?
They're very easy to sell because they're so small. People can hold them in their hand, sell them around the street level.
Now we'd had a total of 20 iPods taken by people they didn't belong to. If one of these was your iPod, would you want to know who had it? Who was dancing down the street with your headphones in their ears? Remember, none of the people who took our iPods realized that when they install the software, they're not just going to be supplying information to Apple, they're going to be talking to Dateline.
You recognize those guys?
Yeah, that's me.
Here comes our undercover RV. It's a hidden camera road trip, a mission to find those missing iPods.
Someone in this house recently registered a new iPod.
When To Catch an Eyejacker continues. We had watched our iPods disappear in cities across America. In Las Vegas, in Paramus and Wayne, New Jersey, in San Francisco, Santa Monica, and in Berkeley. We called Apple's corporate security line as an average consumer to see if it often receives calls about stolen iPods.
Wow. All day long, every 5 to 6 minutes, you get a call like this every day.
And if we were your average music lover, we'd probably be out a $250 iPod. But where were our iPods? Remember, the people who lifted them don't know we're tracking them using some of the same information they provide to Apple when they register a new iPod. First, remember that iPod taken from Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, the one picked up from a bench? Just 5 days later, someone hooks it up to a computer, uses our installation disk, and registers a real address in Fairfield, California. That's how simple it was for us to track down and locate one of our missing iPods. We want to talk to the person who has it, find out who would take an iPod that didn't belong to them. We need a cover story. So we rent this 32-foot RV and attach a banner proclaiming the 30th anniversary music giveaway is in town. To get them into the RV, we'll be telling the person who has our iPod they've won iTunes gift cards, good for free music, if they come into our fully equipped giveaway RV. What they won't know is that the RV is fully equipped with hidden cameras. It was now time to hit the road and head to the address where our iPod was located, 48 miles from where it was taken. Our Dateline producer knocks on the door.
Someone in this house recently registered a new iPod.
This young man agrees to come on board our RV.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Chris, how are you? Have a seat.
This 17-year-old high school junior told us his brother, who wasn't home, had registered a new iPod a few weeks before and got it as a gift.
So where did you get that gift?
One of his friends got him. One of his friend's dads.
And where does he say the friend's dad got it?
I think Best Buy.
Best Buy, okay.
It's time to show him our video from Fisherman's Wharf.
So these guys look familiar to you?
Yes, me and my brother.
That's you and your brother. So you knew at the time he was taking that iPod?
My little brother pointed out and he grabbed it.
It became apparent that at least in some cases, the kind of person who would take an iPod is going to be an impulsive teenager, someone who's probably not really a criminal. So we decided to disguise the identities of the minors in our story.
There's something else that you need to know, and that is, I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC,
okay.
And we're doing a story on stolen iPods. Right. So what's the lesson here?
Don't steal.
Okay. What are you going to tell your brother?
I'm going to tell him that you just got caught stealing. Right. Maybe you shouldn't do it again.
Their parents declined comment for our story. Next stop, Berkeley, California, where you'll recall just outside Berkeley High, we watched another young person snatch an iPod from our convertible. Whoever ended up with our iPod plugged in the installation software and registered not only with Apple, but with Dateline, to an address that led us 15 miles north of Berkeley to the town of Hercules, California. Out comes this young man, ready to claim his gift card inside the RV.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Hey,
good. Have a seat. There you go, bud. Oh, yeah, thanks very much.
Another 17-year-old who may not have thought about the consequences of his actions. It's time to tell him why we're here.
You recognize those guys?
Yeah, that's me.
With the hat on, that's you?
Yeah.
And why don't you narrate for me what's going on in that video?
Oh, we saw an iPod and we took it.
You saw an iPod and you took it. So was that your car?
No.
Was that your iPod?
No.
Then why did you take it?
Oh, no, I just got excited.
Now you know that it's wrong.
Yeah.
And if this were some kind of a police operation,
I'll be in jail.
You could be in serious trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He'll soon be on his way back to the house, where he'll have to figure out what to tell his family, who called what the young man did an embarrassment and offered to pay NBC for the iPod. But ironically, it turns out he wasn't able to enjoy our iPod very long. He says it was stolen from him.
Really? Where was it when it got stolen?
In Berkeley High.
Was it like in your locker? Or?
I guess somebody found out my locker combination and took it.
Our iPod has been stolen again. More of our missing iPods were phoning home with their locations. Next, they were calling us back to Los Angeles, where 3 weeks earlier we'd had 4 iPods taken that were left in shopping bags.
You recently registered a new iPod?
One of the iPods was traced to this woman, who we found at a record store she owns in L.A.
Hey, how are you?
Inside. Wow.
There you go.
Thank you.
Here, have a seat for a minute. I just want to take a quick survey.
At first, she's thrilled by our visit.
When you got your iPod, was it a gift or did you buy it?
It was a gift.
And was it from a family member or a friend?
Family
member. And did they buy it at a Circuit City or a large...
Best Buy.
Best Buy.
What became apparent in this case was that this woman who ended up with the iPod wasn't actually the person who took it. She may think it came from a Best Buy, but I showed her where it really came from.
The iPod that you have was actually in that chair, in that bag.
The one that I have?
The one that you have, the very iPod.
The one that I got as a gift.
Mm-hmm. How would that be?
I guess the person that gave it to me bought it off the street, I guess.
And who was it who gave it to you?
My husband.
Your husband. So
but I don't know where he got it from.
Got it. Now, I'm not saying you did anything wrong here, or accusing you of anything, but there are a couple things that you need to know. And one is that I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC,
right.
And we're doing a story on stolen iPods.
I am shocked. Really shocked. Can't wait to call him and ask him where did it come from.
On her way out the door, she gives us back the iTunes gift card.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Later, she calls. Her husband tells her he bought the iPod not at Best Buy, but at a flea market. We've shown that it's possible, even easy, to track and locate stolen iPods. But there are more surprises to come from people who have no idea they're in possession of a stolen iPod.
Okay, this is not Dateline, is it?
We get that all the time. Here, have a seat over here.
She has one of our iPods. How'd she get it?
I took it and I kept going.
You took it and you kept going.
Yeah.
You even do a little victory dance.
Yeah.
When To Catch an Eyejacker continues.
What do you have to say for yourself?
We'd successfully tracked down 2 missing iPods taken in the San Francisco Bay Area. And another in Los Angeles, picked up from a bench, sold at a flea market, and days later given as a gift to this woman.
I am shocked. Really shocked.
And remember, we were able to track all of them down simply because the users sent personal information about themselves once they registered our missing iPods. Registered them not just with Apple, the manufacturer, but also with Dateline. Remember this iPod shown being lifted in the Fremont district of Las Vegas? Well, when we checked the registration, it led us to this woman, not your average iPod customer, in the small town of San Jacinto, California. And it didn't take long for her to guess who we were.
Okay, this is not Dateline, is it?
We get that all the time. Here, have a seat over here.
Obviously, she's not the person taking it on the video. She told us she got it as a gift.
And it was a gift from whom?
It was from my husband. He brought it back for me from Las Vegas.
The iPod had traveled 260 miles from where it was stolen, and this hard-working woman began to worry she was in a bit of hot water, especially because she knew who we were.
Because you're Chris, whatever from Dateline.
I'm Chris Hansen.
Chris Hansen, yeah.
I get that all the time.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm not a predator, so like, okay.
What can be going on here?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what is going on. I am Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story on stolen iPods.
Oh, you're kidding.
And
You gotta be kidding.
we know that you didn't steal it. Okay.
Oh.
So you're not in any trouble.
Well,
here.
I know my husband didn't steal it either.
But
So where did her husband say he got the iPod?
Well, he
Las
told me
Vegas,
he bought it off a guy that was sitting next to him at a poker table.
Okay.
Remember where
So
stayed.
he was playing poker,
He was playing poker.
and a guy next to him says,
He says, I won this playing poker. You want to buy it? And he bought it from him.
What's the lesson of this? I mean, clearly, this is not something that you're going to enjoy as much as you would had.
I doubt if I ever even use it now, to be honest with you.
Next, it was time to move on to New Jersey, where we'd had 5 iPods pinched from parking lots and shopping malls. First stop, the town of Kearney. This 17-year-old has registered our iPod but didn't use his real name. However, after installing our Dateline disc, he agreed to reveal the identity of his computer via things like email accounts and personal websites. We don't know if Apple has access to the same information when iPods are plugged into computers, but it did allow us to learn his real identity. And while he lied about his name, he did admit how he got the iPod.
Me and my friend actually found the iPod.
And where did you find it?
At a mall.
And the videotape backs up his story, to a point.
I told him, yo, there's a bag, we should return it. He's like, alright, well, go pick it up and we'll return it to Lost and Found.
Now, what you don't see on the video, but what we saw was you turning in the bag, but not the iPod.
Right.
Why turn in the bag and the rest of the stuff, but not the iPod?
I don't know. I know what I did is wrong. If I had to go back, I wouldn't have done it.
Attempts to reach this young man's parents were unsuccessful. On his way out, he tells us he didn't even keep the iPod, but gave it to a friend. Remember this iPod taken off the roof of our car at the mall in Paramus, New Jersey? It found its way to the town of Clifton.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
The college sophomore who filled out our online tracking registration with her real name and address told us she got it the same way most people do. She bought it.
Where did you buy it?
Best Buy.
Best Buy. Was it cash, credit card, check?
Cash.
But the video doesn't exactly show her purchasing it at a Best Buy.
Now, does any of this look at all familiar to you?
Yes.
It does. And why does this look familiar to you?
Because that was the day that I found it.
And is that you right there?
Yeah. I took it and I kept going.
You took it and you kept going?
Yes.
You even do a little victory dance.
Yeah.
Her defense? She'd been a victim of iPod theft herself, and this was a way to even the score.
Well, someone did it to me.
Somebody stole your iPod?
Yes.
So you figured you'd take somebody else's?
Well, I mean, it was sitting on top of the car. So, if I left it there, someone else was going to take it.
So you don't see anything wrong with what you did?
Well, yeah, I mean, I felt wrong when someone did it to me.
Then why would you do that to somebody else if you felt cheated when yours got ripped up?
Because it's a cruel world, so everyone does it to everybody.
Does that make it right?
No, not at all.
And if there's anything else you want to tell me?
Of course, I apologize. You know, I didn't know that they could be tracked, and I felt bad when it happened to me.
Then she does something we haven't seen before. She gives the iPod back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And sorry for all that.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. There it is.
Another lost iPod has been found simply by using the online registration information. Finally, it's time for us to try and track down the rest of our missing iPods in Las Vegas. We find one in the hands of yet another 17-year-old, and like so many others, he claims it was purchased legitimately.
Do you know what store your mom bought the iPod at?
I'm not sure. I think that's mine.
But minutes later, after he's seen our video of him picking up our iPod from a table in the mall food court, then walking away, he appears to have learned a lesson and has some advice.
If you find like a stolen iPod, just give it back to Lost and Found.
This young man's father later tells Dateline he thought we were unfairly tempting kids to take iPods. And finally, we meet this man.
Hey, man, how are you?
He filled out our online registration using his real name and address. First, he tells us he bought the iPod. Then he says he found the iPod. But none of this explains the video we have of someone who looks just like him lifting the iPod off a bench in a mall. His response?
You can equate it to walking down the street and finding a $100 bill on the floor. I mean, where are you going to take that if you're just in the middle of the street?
But this is a product that was in the mall, and you could have at least gone to Lost and Found it.
So I guess I used bad judgment at that moment.
We'd tracked down 12 of the 20 missing iPods. Some of those taken would never turn up because no one ever bothered to register them. So we can't be sure if any of these people actually tried to find who really owned the iPods in order to return them. But we do know it was easy to locate the ones that were registered, and we did it using some of the same information that owners provide to Apple when any new iPod is registered. What's next? What would Apple do if you report a stolen iPod to the company? Our hidden cameras head to the Apple Store.
Do you have people that you guys are lending their iPods?
When To Catch an Hijacker continues. We'd watched 20 iPods get picked up, grabbed by people who didn't own them. We saw them disappear in cities from coast to coast. Some people who took the iPods still had them.
There it is.
But others had no idea they were stolen.
Oh, you're kidding.
And
You gotta be kidding.
we know that you didn't steal it.
Either way, using basic information similar to what Apple gets when an iPod communicates with its database, we'd successfully track down more than half of the missing gadgets. Remember, all we did was put out new iPods to get our information when the machines were registered online. We know some stolen iPods could probably never be tracked because some are probably never hooked up to a computer. But the question is, if we were able to track iPods, could Apple do something similar or something else to discourage theft? There are some iPod owners who believe the answer is yes. But when this man, whose iPod was stolen, called Apple for help,
And they pretty much told me that I was out of luck and that there was nothing I can do and nothing they can do.
and that's the same message received by Alan Ferry when his girlfriend's iPod was stolen. Ferry called Apple thinking because of all the technology at its disposal that the company could trace it for him. Apple said it couldn't help.
What was your attitude when you hung up the phone with Apple?
I'm going to figure out something to do. I'll come up with a solution here. Apple could do something, and I'm going to make sure that everyone knows that Apple could do something.
So Ferry started a campaign of sorts. First in 2006, the law school graduate set up a website called StolenIPods.com. He asked for comments from visitors and received thousands of emails like this one.
I don't care if they call in SWAT, break in their doors, and beat them within an inch of death. I just want my iPod back.
But what began with emails has become a movement of angry iPod owners convinced Apple could find their iPods and the thieves.
Why should Apple be held accountable if somebody gets their iPod stolen?
Oh, I'm not saying that they should be held accountable. I just want them to do more than they're doing.
We should say that many of iPod's competitors in the MP3 market apparently don't do anything more than Apple does to track missing machines. But it's not uncommon for high-tech companies to help when some products are lost or stolen.
We're sorry. The number you have dialed is not valid.
If you lose your cell phone, some wireless companies will shut it off and flag the phone as stolen if it's ever brought in for service. If your computer's lost or stolen, software like LoJack for laptops can lead you to it. The computer, when hooked to the internet, sends a silent signal to the headquarters of Absolute Software in Vancouver, British Columbia. And voila, police are alerted about where to find the stolen item.
Trace, I'm just calling to let you know that your computer was recovered.
And if you call HP, Dell, or Gateway, to name a few, their customer service reps will take down a computer's serial number and flag it as stolen if it ever turns up. But what about Apple? Detective Richard Kenny's called the company for help solving cases involving stolen iPods. But with 110 million iPods out there and sales dwarfing those other products, maybe the answer he got is not so surprising.
Apple's response is that due to the overwhelming numbers of iPods that they manufacture and sell each year, that they cannot create a database with that kind of information.
Watch what happens when we ask this retired detective we hired as a consultant to call Apple Corporate Security. He introduced himself as an investigator attempting to get information about a stolen iPod.
Apple does not flag any items. You know why? They said the sheer volume of thefts and disputes in schools alone would overwhelm them.
Here's another scenario. What if you found someone's iPod and wanted Apple's help returning it? This woman bought an iPod from someone she met in a bar. She began to suspect it was stolen when she noticed someone else's name engraved on the back. She then contacted StolenIPods.com founder Alan Ferry, who put her in touch with Dateline.
I heard that Apple helps reunite the owner of the iPod.
We decided to try to help solve her problem, so we sent her to an Apple store in New York City to try to return the iPod with a hidden camera recording her every move.
And I had buyer's remorse the next day because it doesn't belong to me. Okay. Do you help people reunite them and their iPods?
You're doing all the right things. We can't look up. Even if we could look it up, we can't guarantee that the name attached to it is the right person.
Couldn't you take the information and then try to contact him?
It's a matter of not only liability but privacy. So we're not allowed to do any of that, honestly.
She then went to a second Apple store. The manager at this store did look up the iPod's registration and serial number.
There's no registration. It's been registered by somebody.
Okay.
So there's info about the person.
And then Mac will contact him and say somebody found
It's your call.
And that's what happened. The manager returned this stolen iPod to its rightful owner. This iPod story has a happy ending.
I think it's pretty simple.
It's exactly the case Alan Ferry, who runs StolenIPods.com, has been trying to make.
Now, Apple needs to recognize that they've created a device, a product, that is so incredibly successful that it's become a commodity on the black market. Change things around a little bit. Be the pioneer that they've always been. Think different.
And guess what? We just learned that Apple may be doing exactly that and may end up being the hero of our story. An ingenious solution at the Genius Bar?
If the mothership could track down the iPod, Apple might make more money.
And To Catch an Eyejacker continues. We'd paid a software company $40,000 to come up with this, a disc we slipped into packages of brand new iPods. And when those who took our iPods installed all the software, this Dateline disc helped us learn the location of whoever took the iPod. We were able to zero in on more than half. And police officers like Detective Richard Kenny of NYPD say if Apple does what we did, it would stop iPod crime in its tracks. If the public knew there was a way to track these things down, what do you think would happen to the incidence of iPod theft?
The people who actually committing the crimes and stealing them would stop doing that because they don't have anyone to sell them to.
Is he right? We went straight to the horse's mouth, the people who took our iPods. If you known that there was a way to track these things, would you have taken it?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have taken it in the first place.
Yeah, they wouldn't take it at all.
No one would take it if they thought it could be tracked down.
People like me wouldn't be like, no way.
And calls for Apple to take action are being heard not just here, but around the world.
People are very nervous that they're tracked when they use technology.
Stephen Levy is a senior editor at Newsweek magazine and the author of The Perfect Thing, How the iPod Shuffles Commerce, Culture, and Coolness.
I think that since they're not legally responsible, they don't want to take the step of going that extra mile and saying, hey, we know everyone's the serial number of every iPod when it connects to the iTunes store.
Do you think that Apple has the technology currently to track a stolen iPod?
My guess is that, probably they have the technology to figure out what ID is on there. But I don't think, they have the obligation. It might be a good incentive to add to AppleCare, which is their insurance policy for iPods, to have some kind of tracking thing. They make money from AppleCare. That's a profit center for them, so maybe it would be more profitable. People would sign up more if they had iPod stolen insurance in there. If the mothership could track down the iPod, more people might sign up for AppleCare, and Apple might make more money.
And although Apple declined our requests for interviews and comment regarding this report, the company, which consistently ranks at or near the top in customer satisfaction surveys in the tech world, might well turn out to be the hero in our story after all. Why? Just recently came word from the U.S. Patent Office that Apple has applied for a new patent. In its application, Apple confirms that there is a, quote, serious problem, unquote, with iPod theft and that iPod owners have been seriously injured or even murdered for their iPods. And the company has proposed an ingenious solution to the problem. Essentially, you can't recharge the iPod or the new iPhone if you can't prove the device is yours when you hook it up to iTunes.
If an owner wants to opt in and they're offering as a service, I think that could be a good thing.
Until Apple follows through with the plans outlined in the patent, others have rushed to meet demand for someone to do something about stolen iPods. Alan Ferry has turned StolenIPods.com into a business venture, Unlose It, which bills itself as Earth's Lost and Found Center and uses a system of stickers and rewards to reconnect lost or stolen gadgets with their owners. Other companies like Gadget Track use tracking software. Another firm, Stuffback, like Unlose It, uses a system of stickers to help recover gadgets and other property. After all, when it comes to iPods, people will do almost anything to get theirs back. Alan Ferry and some of those who first asked for help just went out and bought new ones. And Stephen Levy? He had his precious iPod stolen too, but he's getting by using an old one for now.
Look, obviously, I'm not going to shrivel and die without an iPod, but, life wouldn't be as fun.
We'll keep you up to date on what Apple is doing. You can learn more about our iPod investigation on our website. Just log on to dateline.msnbc.com.